Okay, so let's get started. Bienvenidos a todos que están aquí en esta charla de hoy. Gracias por llegar. I have some of my little ballet students who are here, so I'm going to be translating parts of the conversation if that's okay.
Yep. All right.
Okay, perfect. So, my name is Christine Chayari Lopez, and I'm the founding director of Transformación Ballet in Sololá, Guatemala. And welcome to the fifth talk of our Real Talk series, a talk in which we are investigating and talking with directors of dance programs around the world in developing countries to see how COVID-19 has impacted their programs and to learn a little bit more about their programming right now during International Dance Week. So I will share a little bit about myself, and then Mariska, I'll pass the mic to you so you can share a little bit about yourself. And then we'll give a brief summary of part one, which we started yesterday, and then we'll move into what we have planned for today's talk.
Yeah. All right.
So my name is Christine Chayari Lopez, as I mentioned before, and I am here in Guatemala running Transformación Ballet. We are a Christian ballet ministry with 120 students, 50 of which dance for free on scholarship. And of those 50%, 25% of our students are from orphanages around the lake. So we have 3 branches and also give classes in a 4th town. And currently I'm the only teacher, as my other 2 volunteer teachers were evacuated because of the COVID-19 situation. We also do conferences to teach the girls about what it means to be a daughter in Christ, and to teach them about their health, such as menstruation and their bodies, because that's something that's not taught here, and in the culture it's something that's taboo. It doesn't always happen in other countries, but we've had students who, when they get their periods, they decide they don't want to continue ballet because they're very uncomfortable, and no one ever taught them about it. So that's another topic we might talk about today. So Mariska, if you can introduce yourself and your organization.
Okay, I'm Mariska Febriyani from Jakarta, and my organization called Ballet.ID, or Ballet Indonesia Foundation, established since 2014. There are 5 of us in the foundation. We work voluntarily in the foundation, and basically the foundation aims to enabling the environment for Indonesian dancers to grow by creating a platform that provides chances for Indonesian dancers to develop through cultural exchange. And normally we do collaboration with international dance teacher or oh, you can do the pin. Oh, thank you. Sorry, I got distracted with the pin. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, with the international teacher or the dancers, and our main program divided into 3, which is 1, it's the skill enrichment. We do workshop or master classes. Our biggest workshop, it's every school holiday, which is in June or July. It's like 1 week full dance classes, normally ballet and contemporary, sometimes with jazz or like the musical theater. And also we do showcase as well. The biggest one is the ballet gala, which has happened every 2 years, and it's supposed to be happen this year, but yeah, let's wait and see. Yeah, through the showcase, like we collaborate with many dancers. Normally we hope that they not only come to perform in Indonesia, but they can also collaborate with Indonesian dancers. So there's a cultural exchange there that we can learn together. And the other one, it's the outreach program, which is our outreach program. It's the provide the free dance class for the underprivileged kids, which is initiated the first time in 2015 by Australian-Indonesian ballerina Juliet Burnett, which is it's gonna be our special guest speaker for today.
Woo! So excited. Awesome. So for one question, since you're the one hosting this one, can you pin my comment where it gives the title of our talk, where it says Indonesia, Barriers to Dance from the Suburbs to the Slums of Jakarta? Can you pin that? Or can you write it down and then pin it so that everyone can see the topic for the day?
That's how you pin it.
You press it and
Yep, done.
Here we go. Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, awesome. So I'm very excited to be here with Mariska one more time for part 2, and hopefully in the future other talks that we can talk about. So let's just give a little overview of yesterday. So yesterday we were talking about your and how you're reaching out to children. Well, first of all, the one side of your organization where you're creating opportunities to learn about dance, have a cultural exchange, and have, I guess, also mingle with other dancers in their own country. And just when there's competition in ballet, it pushes the students to work harder, and it also opens their eyes to the other level of dancing that they can achieve. And then on the other side, there's the community program where they're providing free dance classes to students in the slum areas of Jakarta by the river in squatter settlements. So these actually, if you may have heard in the news in the past few years, in Indonesia, there were a lot of people living on squatter settlements by the river, but because of health standards and political situations, they were forced to move. And so actually Ballet.ID moved along with them so they could continue offering ballet classes to these students. And they offer it completely free. And aside from offering these classes completely free, all of the teachers with Ballet.ID are volunteers. So like Mariska here, she offers her time for free to teach dance to children who would not have had the opportunity to take dance classes, because for all the dancers out there, you know ballet is a very expensive art to participate in. Not only the classes, but pointe shoes are outrageously expensive. Leotards, tights rip, you need multiple pairs. So what they're doing is just an incredible job for a group of children who might not ever have had the opportunity to dance. So if you can just share a little bit more about what it looked like, what we spoke about yesterday, give a little overview of what it looks like to teach dance to students who have never been exposed to ballet and who might not even know what ballet is. Because that's something you're doing, introducing ballet for the first time.
Yep, so we started in 2015. Actually, it's during the first Indonesian Ballet Gala, and then we invited Juliet Burnett to perform in the gala, and somehow she came up with the idea, which is actually it was her dream, with her uncle, which is W. S. Rendra, like the famous poet and also playwriters in Indonesia, the late W. S. Rendra. And yeah, it actually like, yeah, I think if it's not because of her, it wouldn't happen until now. Because like it's really far from, yeah, I don't know. I've never like experienced like that before, or like ever thought that we can bring ballet to the people who it's really hard to access ballet for them, something like that. So basically in 2015 we tried to find a community. Actually, like there's the one community that called Ciliwung Merdeka. It's around Ciliwung Riverside, and actually they have dance class in their area, but the teacher who taught them, they only watch from the YouTube, and then they start doing the ballet. It's not ballet, it's not even ballet, so it's just like any kind of dance. Basically they have the dance class there, and then we ask them like if they want to collaborate with us, and then we can provide the teacher for them and something like that. So I came there like, I don't know, I cannot remember, like probably like 2 or 3 times before Juliet came there, just to give the overview to them, like what kind of program is this and something like that. And yeah, so Juliet went there in August 2015, and then start like kickstart the program, and then after that we continue the program, and then we did the performance together with the kids. And unfortunately, I cannot remember, I think it's 2017 or 16, the government had to move them to another place, because actually like they're not supposed to live there. It's in the riverside. Yeah, it's a little bit hard, because like actually like they move a little bit further, and then not like in the same area, all of them. And then after that we tried to find another community, which is it's around West Jakarta. We call it Kampung Guji. And the difference is like Kampung Guji, they don't have any space. Actually like they have open space, but it's really open and quite small space. That's why like with them, we run the studio. We hire the studio and then bring them every Saturday afternoon to have class with them. And then normally like every program, we create the program with the performance at the end. So give them the opportunity as well to perform and to express themselves, something like that.
That's amazing because, sorry, that's amazing because with this initiative, one person's idea, and then although although Juliet doesn't live in Indonesia and is able to continue it, with your talent and your passion, this one idea is able to continue and flourish. And I know that there's people watching who maybe have their own dance programs. They want to do something similar. A little backstory. So Mariska is a ballet teacher, and that's how she sustains herself. But also, this is her passion, bringing dance accessibility and bringing in the Indonesian ballet scene higher on the global level. And if she wasn't spending her time doing this as a volunteer, it wouldn't happen because it's very hard to find funding to do projects for a population group which, for example, isn't paying taxes, or that the government might not be taking as much care of because they're living in a squatter settlement, essentially. This is very interesting. I'm going to translate it into Spanish for a second for my students who are watching so they know what's going on. So, Mariska, ella es una de las cofundadoras de Ballet.ID en Indonesia, y mi papá es de Indonesia, si no sabían. Y ella está contando su historia sobre cómo empezó su organización. Y no solamente están trabajando con la organización para dar una oportunidad a personas que no tienen la oportunidad de competir, pero por su organización también está ofreciendo clases de ballet gratis a niños y niñas que viven en zonas de ampliación en Indonesia, en Jakarta específicamente, al lado del río. Y lo que justo pasó es que en ese área tenían que mudarse porque por situaciones de la salud, no solo eso, pero también situaciones políticas, tenían que mudarse a otro lado. Y Mariska no solamente se mudó con ellos para enseñarles en un nuevo lugar, pero también ahorita están pagando el alquiler de un estudio para poder todavía ofrecerles estas clases gratis a los niños y niñas que viven en esa zona de la ampliación al lado del río. Okay. So that's the translation.
Yeah,
Quick
thank you.
translation. Yeah.
Thank you.
So let's see, what else would we like to talk briefly about that we mentioned yesterday? Is there anything else that you would like to share with the people who are watching?
No, I think it's to summarize yesterday, and yeah, I mean, like, I think Juliet can explain more, like the background story why she started this, or how come she came up, she and her uncle came up with this idea. I think she's the best person to speak to explain.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit as we're waiting for Juliet to come. Let's talk a little bit about access to ballet and what does the cost of taking ballet classes look like in Jakarta? In Indonesia, for example, in the capital, the cost of ballet classes at many
Mm-hmm.
studios is maybe half of the income of people who live in the area where I teach dance. So obviously, paying for dance classes here in the area where I teach in Guatemala is only possible for middle and upper class families. And that's why it's so necessary that I give discounts here and also make sure that my prices are not very elevated. So can you talk a little bit about the economic access to dance and what it requires?
Actually, like, we try to be as accessible as possible. As the I mean, like, not me, but I mean, like, I can see all the ballet school that try to really try to be as accessible as can be for the dancers. But sometimes, like, with all the little tarts, and especially when you need the point shoes and everything, it's still like there's some expenses that you really have to spend. And it's normally only like, yeah, I can say, like, the middle upper family that can afford that, because, like, of course, most of the school is a private school, so it means they don't have any funding or like any support from anyone else. So basically, like, they really they run the school from the tuition fee from the students as well. So yeah, that's the situation. I mean, like, that's why, like, it's not, like, really accessible for everyone. That's why, like, some of the school, or even, like, the organization like Ballet.ID try to provide the free dance school for people who cannot afford the dance class, something like that.
And what does tuition look like in Jakarta for a dance class compared to an average middle class person's income? Because here, as I mentioned, for somebody to attend a dance school for a month for maybe 2 or 3 classes a week. In Guatemala City, the cost is going to be probably, it's around the same amount of money for one person in this area's income for a month. So if you're a low income family, one person's income is equal to what 1 month of dance costs in Guatemala City, here in Guatemala. So can you maybe share a little bit what it looks like, how much it costs for 1 month versus somebody's salary who's maybe middle class or lower class?
I never really think about that before, so let me see. Okay, normally like the dance class, it's um, like the very standard of the income that we have in Jakarta. It's probably like 10% of the income only for the dance class.
Oh.
Yep, for 1 month income. So it's around like 10% of the so it means like you have to spend like 10% of your out of your income if you wanna do the dance class. But I mean like it's
Oh,
like the
wow.
really standard income. It's the really standard income, like the minimum wage that people get. I mean like the middle upper class for sure, like they get more than that. But it's like I say, like it's like the lowest, like the bottom, like the minimum income that people get. It's based on the government regulation, so it's around like 10% out of their income for 1 month
Oh, okay.
dance
So
class
it's,
for only once a week. So they
oh,
got
for
around like
once a week.
4 classes, yeah, 4 classes a month.
Oh, okay, okay. So it does seem more accessible than the cost of dance classes here in Indonesia.
Yeah, but like a lot of people, like especially like middle low class, they work like daily. They got like daily income, which is not big at all. And it means like they don't get, yeah, I mean like they really have to work every day so they can buy some food or like any supplies for their family. So that's why it's really hard for the like middle lower class,
Yes, yes, of
something
course. So
like
the
that.
people who are living day to day have a much
Yep,
lower income, and
yep.
so for them, dance is not accessible. And I think that's very common all around the
Mm-hmm.
world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, as you were saying before, really dance, if you have a middle income, it's accessible for you. But you said that ballet is not, is just recently being introduced in Indonesia, because you said that there's no national ballet in Indonesia. Is that correct?
Yep, there's no national, like professional national ballet company, as in full-time dance company in Indonesia. No, we don't have it.
No. Okay, so
Mm.
that's something different too, because here in Guatemala there is a national ballet company. So just looking at that, although Indonesia might have the possibility to compete with ballet and dance in country, the government doesn't recognize it as much because there's not a national dance program. So that's interesting because here in Guatemala there is a national dance company, ballet company. However, there's only one national competition that happens per year and it's very expensive to join. So it basically is only for the studios that have very high income.
I think it's a
Yeah.
little bit different. While in Jakarta, we have at least like 3 different international competition somehow, but we don't have the national ballet company.
So interesting. It's
Yep,
That's so interesting. That means that there's a huge passion and movement for ballet, but the government hasn't yet gotten on that wagon
yep.
to bring it to life. So hey, the people want ballet. That's what it's showing. That's good. Oh. Okay,
Actually,
so
Juliet is ready. You just try to invite from through Ballet.ID Instagram. Okay, so hand over to Juliet. Yeah, still in Ballet.ID and Transformation Ballet Instagram, but hand over
okay,
to Juliet. All right, talk to you soon.
thanks.
Good
Hi.
stuff. Hi. Hi, Christine.
Welcome. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm so excited to have you here joining us
No worries. Lovely to meet you.
too. Okay, so everybody, the topic for today, as you heard, is talking about barriers to dance from the suburbs to the slums of Jakarta. And this is part of our Real Talk series and today's Talk 5, where we're looking at dance programs in developing countries and how they're impacted amidst COVID-19. So right now we have a special invitee, and if you would like to present yourself and tell a little bit about how you had the idea for Ballet.ID, and also one of my little students has a question for you as a ballet dancer. So why don't you present yourself, and then I will translate, and then I'll get to some questions about development and your idea to basically create access to dance in an area where there's not access to the basic needs.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, my name's Juliet. I'm a professional dancer based in Antwerp in Belgium, but with all the COVID stuff going on, I'm currently in Sydney back home where I'm originally from. My mother is Indonesian, so that's my link to Indonesia. We went back there a lot as children because I've got a huge family over there, and it was on one of these trips back there, not one of, actually, many of them, the drive from the airport in Jakarta to the center of town. You pass through, the highway passes over all of these slums. And I just remember my sister and I would always ask, you know, who lives there? And, you know, we wanted to know about it. And my parents were always very open and told us, you know, it's where there's a lot of poor people living in Indonesia. And so that was always something in the back of my mind. And then I reached a point in the middle of my career as a professional dancer. I've been dancing professionally for nearly 20 years now. And you sort of hit a point where you sort of think, what's this all about? What am I doing here? How can I give back in some other way beyond being a professional dancer on the stage and, you know, not really having my own authorship in my dancing at all times, and finding an identity. So I went back to, you know, inside Indonesia, and I went back to Javanese dance to reconnect with my culture. And then it was on that trip that I sort of thought, well, what are some ways that I could give beyond that, things that are, well, they're not just for me, they're for my audience as well, but what's something that I can do to give back to the culture that's enriched me as a person. And that's when I thought back to, you know, the slums that I saw when I was younger, and yeah, and was reminded also of so the voice of my uncle saying that art is the voice of the people, and realised, hey, there's the link. I can use dance as the medium to help out, yeah, people living under the line in Indonesia, and create, hopefully, more accessibility for them to be able to access my knowledge as a dancer, and for me to learn as well about what they experience of traditional dance. So that was how it happened. Ballet.ID, sorry, that was the genesis of the idea. And then Ballet.ID, around that time, asked me to go and dance in their first ballet gala. And I did that, and I said, well, how about we also create together this community program? And I told them my idea, and I was teaching, meanwhile, master classes for some dance there. And we managed to integrate the two. So it was a week of master classes with these kids who are already trained, you know, kids who are privileged enough to have ballet training. And we thought it would be a cool idea to teach them a dance that they could perform for the kids in the kampung, in the community in Ciliwung. And that was part of the program, as well as going there and teaching these kids who have never seen ballet, knew what on earth ballet was, and created a bit of an introduction to ballet for them. And it was just a really, really nice occasion. And we continued the conversation as well over the last few years to keep it alive. So it wasn't just a one-off gesture of just going in there and introducing ballet to them. So yeah, so that's the background.
Oh, awesome. So I'm going to translate a portion. I'm going to bring it down and translate that for my students who are watching.
Good luck.
Bueno, les presento a Juliet. Ella es una balletista profesional con una compañía en Bélgica y ella está bailando ya 20 años. Y bueno, su mamá es de Indonesia y es parte de este programa y básicamente es su idea que inició este programa. Y cuando era niña, cuando era pequeñita y se fue a Indonesia para visitar a su familia porque estaba viviendo en Australia, siempre pasaron la zona de ampliación cerca del río y preguntó a sus padres quiénes son ellos, quién vive allá y dijeron que son personas de bajos recursos que viven allá en una zona de ampliación. Y cuando ella creció, continuó con su carrera de balletista allá en diferentes lados del mundo y en un momento ella pensó a sí misma, ¿qué puedo hacer para dar a la comunidad en vez de solo seguir mi carrera y lo que estoy diciendo? Y recordó algo que dijo su tío, que dijo que el arte es la voz de la gente. Y en ese momento pensó, ¿qué puedo hacer para ayudar a usar mis conocimientos para los demás? Y ahí ella era parte de Ballet.ID, en que hicieron una gala para dar una presentación de ballet. Y ella pensó, ¿por qué no empezamos un programa comunitario en que podemos dar mis conocimientos y compartir el ballet con personas en tal vez ese área que vi cuando era jovencita? Y eso es como inició. Ok.
Cool, well done. It sounded
So
beautiful.
thank you. So, I have a question from one of my students.
Yeah.
My student Jimena, she is ballet too. She just started ballet this year and she loves it so much. She says, ¿Qué se siente ser profesional y bailar en un escenario? She wants to know what does it feel like to be a professional ballerina and to dance on a stage because she's never danced on a stage before.
Oh, wow. Well, it seems a very fitting question for right now as ballet dancers around the world are not dancing on stages and we're all sort of at home and a lot of us are reflecting on how privileged we are to be able to perform on the stage. And it's a funny thing because the career is you have to start from such a young age. And then you just sort of keep going with this continual momentum. Otherwise, you're gonna miss the train. You know, the body stays fit and healthy for only this window of time, and that's our human biology. So you're always chasing the clock, and also there's not many opportunities for for professional performance in the world, and very few. So there's a lot of competition as well. So we're all slowing down and thinking about what it means to be in this position, to be the privileged few to dance on a stage. And something I've been thinking about a lot is how like the creation of a theatre and all of these chairs in front of this platform and a curtain and this whole mystery and magic of the effects, and it's like this artificial environment, and it's so weird actually when you think about it, when you think of the very primitive origins of dance. You know, it's just really strange. And so I mean I went to Greece in the summer last year and saw like the open amphitheaters and the stage that was in the middle of these circles in the outdoors, and I was like, oh, this makes a lot more sense to me because there's something what it is to gather somehow in this natural environment. And I don't know, so I've been thinking a lot about theatres and how weird it is. But I have to say, like, just as a ballet dancer, the moments that you're in the spotlight on stage and say, I'm just going to talk about Romeo and Juliet as an example, and you are Juliet. I mean, I am Juliet, but I'm Juliet in Shakespeare's Juliet at that moment on stage, and I'm no one else in the world. And the moments that you completely inhabit the story and you believe that you're 14 in Verona in love with Romeo and you'll die for him. These moments are just see that, like, I mean, it's really they stick in your mind in a very, very special and sacred way. And I can return to that moment and feel like I'm feeling like my heart's starting to flutter just thinking about it. It's a very magical thing, but it's also a very strange thing. It's very surreal, like to inhabit another character that's so yeah, I was named after the play, but I'm so different to that Juliet, and all of the months of research and rehearsal you put into that moment, that one moment that's over like that, it's magic. Like, if I was to put it in one word, the experience of being a professional dancer on stage, and you experience those moments after all of this hard work, it's magic. It is.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so I'm going to translate that for her. Así, Jimena, su respuesta es que, bueno, en menos palabras, su respuesta es que es un momento muy mágico. Y por ejemplo, cuando está bailando el ballet Romeo y Julieta, cuando ella está haciendo ese carácter con su cuerpo y expresando todo con su cuerpo, dice que es un momento no solo mágico, pero también un poco raro porque es parte de un teatro y todo está creado. Es un momento en que ella no solamente está poniendo su cuerpo en esa posición, pero también su mente en esa posición. Y dice que hasta después de bailarlo, cuando lo piensa, su corazón empieza a moverse muy rápido porque se siente esa emoción de ser ese otro carácter y estar allá en el escenario. Y dice que primero es un poco raro pensar que todo el teatro es creado, pero también cuando ella visitó a Grecia, vio los teatros, teatros, I don't know how to say amphitheater, los teatros antiguos. ¿Qué diferencia? Todo inició ahí, en Grecia, con el teatro y qué tan el baile ha cambiado hasta ahora. Y dice que por eso es un momento muy mágico, pero también muy raro, porque todo está creado.
I love that language so much. It sounds so beautiful.
Thanks. Also, it's like when I'm talking to my younger students, I talk in a little magical way too to get their attention. So that's not how I usually speak in Spanish.
You got my attention for sure.
But I would love to talk a little bit more about the inception of the community program and, well, the to dance. So can you talk a little bit more about barriers to dance in a developing country versus Australia, which is a developed country, and then also what creating access to dance does for those children and what the mentality behind it was to create this community program?
Indeed, yes. As we all know, in the reality in developing countries is the huge gap between the different socioeconomic demographics. It's really worrying that the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, even in this day and age where we're developing so much awareness of what's going on in the world, and there's so many ways to connect through the internet and through the news. You know, it's so wide reaching and there's so much knowledge and information, and yet we're still so stuck in a way, like in this very old model. And yeah, I really see it in Indonesia when I go back. I don't know enough about other developing countries to comment, but going there a lot as a child and see very many years that I go there. And the difference in Australia is that you just don't see that. I mean, you might see it a little bit if you go to certain areas. But I grew up in the middle of Sydney in Australia, and in very, like, you know, very normal suburbs, and you're just not exposed to it. I went to good schools. I was privileged enough to be able to afford, my parents were able to afford ballet lessons for my sister and I. So for two of us we both were in the Australian Ballet School at the same time. We were both going to a private school here. So we very much had a very privileged life. And so it's not really, unless for me as a kid going to Indonesia and seeing that you're exposed to that when you're growing up in Australia. So that was like a reality that I didn't really explore fully until I was an adult and in the career. And it was then like, especially when I was researching how to get this program going and just what to do about it. I was reading a lot about accessibility of dance for underprivileged kids. I was dancing with the Australian Ballet at the time, and where I'd been for 13 years, and they had this really nice program that was reaching out to regional centres in Australia, and to also at the time Bangarra Dance Theatre, which is the Indigenous dance company here, was doing some outreach programs for Indigenous communities in because Australia is such a huge country, so to reach those outback places, it's really important, because they can't really access training out there, for example, and the only way they can see performances is online nowadays. So bringing dance and the knowledge of professionals to them was something really great that the Australian Ballet and Bangarra were doing. So I was very much inspired by those programs, and thought, well, why not bring that to Indonesia, and how do we do that? And like I said, the timing of Ballet.ID contacting me, and I learned about what their foundation was doing. I thought, oh, well, this is absolutely perfect to collaborate with these guys who have already done so much groundwork in understanding the scene in Indonesia, which are, in fact, honestly, when I was people were learning classical ballet in Indonesia. You know, I knew like my family were learning traditional dance just like every other kid there, but I didn't know that classical ballet was something that had existed there. It was brought over, of course, by like the Dutch, I guess, and again, that's something that I'm sure that Mariska could fill you in much better, but I'm still learning about it, and because it's something that I didn't know even existed in Indonesia. Even though I grew up in a family of artists, but none of them did classical ballet. So this was really interesting to me about, like, you know, first of all, the context of it, like the Western classical ballet and how it relates to Indonesian culture. And when there's such a rich dance culture there, like, why do they want to engage with it? And not a critique saying that, but just like, I wanted to know why. And secondly, if it meant something to the people there, how do we create opportunities for them to access the training? And I learnt that the only people who were able to access the training were people who had the economic privilege to be able to do so. And when I did the community program there, and I saw talent, well, how do we nurture this? So we created a scholarship for 2 of the students to access training for a longer period of time. And that's something that I would like to look into further to sustain over a longer period of time. It's difficult with this current climate at the moment, but eventually we'll get there. But I think that kind of shows the difference, where something like that, thinking of like economic privilege in Australia, like a lot of people can access ballet training here. There's certainly people who miss it, but in Indonesia, like it's a stark difference for sure.
Yes, definitely. And I think it's so important that you were asking that critical question on what does it mean to access dance, asking if the people want it and if it's going to impact in a positive way, because so much we see in the nonprofit and in any type of movement or philanthropic sector where someone comes in and says, this is going to be good for you. But it's so important to ask that critical question, like, what do the people want? And do they want this access? And what does their tradition and history tell them about having this access? And actually, to your question about integrating students from community programs into formal ballet classes, Marion from IDB LWR in Haiti, so that's the first ballet academy in Haiti, we had a talk with her earlier, and we were talking just about that and how our students from the orphanage program need to go through basically a set of private classes to prepare them for what the structure of a formal ballet class will look like and for what the students in a formal ballet class will act like. Otherwise, they'll stay there a little while and feel overwhelmed and then want to quit, or they won't be able to continue. So I think that even listening to that talk, or we could talk about it after, I can connect you with her. There's so much, it's very difficult. it's an entire process, and it takes a lot of dedication to help these kids who come from a very different socioeconomic situation in general to integrate them into formal ballet, because formal ballet is a culture. It's not just a class for everyone who's
Indeed.
watching who's not.
Indeed. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Yeah. No, it's really interesting. And I think that first Ballet Goes to Chile workshop really drove home the answers to that question. Like, I showed the kids a video of, and I was very careful to pick which video, because that's the other thing. Culturally, like, I think it's so important what you said, that ballet is a culture, you know, that it's not a class. Like, I think that's a really important comment. And the thing that troubles me about it is that the stories that are traditional in ballet come with that inherent politics, sadly, because I mean, the Petipa ballets are all made by Petipa, who was living in Russia in the 1800s, and this is a very particular time in history, and the stories are very nuanced to that culture. And so something that I was really careful to pick when I was showing them the video is what's a story that they can maybe relate to in some way, that's not overly like, oh, here's a fairy story that maybe is totally unrelatable. I mean, there's one thing like taking me to a different world for escapism, but then there's another thing to create these unhealthy ideals. So I was really careful to not pick out something. So I found a really nice video of the Hong Kong Ballet doing Swan Lake, because it was like, you know, Asian dancers doing, you know, these very magical things. And so it was something that they could immediately relate to. And it was a really nice production. So I showed them the dance of the signets, and they were just like, you know, these cartoon eyes coming out of their heads, like little love hearts. It was so beautiful. And then I was like, my gosh, this is what it means. Like, that they could see themselves somehow in this position, and it just sparks the imagination. And so I taught them a little bit of swan arms and all this kind of thing, so that they could see themselves doing that. And so then they can make a very personal and deep connection to it in some way, or at least plant a seed for it. Of course, a lot of them were just like, you know, what on earth is this? But of course, you know, it's I think that was the important thing, was to spark the imagination. But yeah, I think that's the thing that does trouble me, I have to admit, and it's something I struggle with a lot with the tradition of classical ballet, is to make it relevant for today. And that's something that I'm working on at the moment. I've just started choreographing, and I've been really working on finding a hybrid of Indonesian dance styles with particularly Javanese, because that's where my family's from, with classical ballet and with contemporary dance and dance theatre influences, and finding a hybrid and a language that can make sense for, you know, to bring dance in Indonesia into a hybrid language that makes sense for the people there. And of course, that's not to say that you can't have your traditional ballets and have them danced by Indonesian people. It's not that at all. It's just, I think we have to be very careful in how, inherently political those stories actually are. Like, you can, I mean, there's a lot of talk about, you know, like Sleeping Beauty, like the prince kisses her on the lips, and like, you know, she's not consenting to that. Things like that, like, people can nitpick a lot, and at the end of the day you sort of think, oh, isn't just a fun little fairy story. But I think that it's worth asking those questions as well when there is such a strong political voice in those developing countries, and that's just the nature of it. So being sensitive to that is, I think, a good idea.
And you know, I think it's such a good point, and also we could really bring this conversation into so many directions, but looking at how international competitions might not appreciate a dance piece for youth if it incorporates Indigenous dance moves, or participant is maybe not the idealistic frozen. However, if that participant can execute the moves, but because their ballet body might look more Indigenous to their area than the classical ballet body, that might impact the scores that they received. And even talking about, I'm not going to get into this next comment too much because of the political sensibility in Indonesia, but how race and economic situations are very much tied, and that really has to do with access to dance as well. But one amazing thing about Ballet.ID is that they're not looking at the race of who these children are or who they are not, and they're allowing access to dance for children, whether they be whatever type of ethnicity or political
Yeah.
association or social standing, which is something that's extremely important because ballet is becoming political as it's becoming a moneymaker around the world. And so
That's right. Yeah.
and that's something that we're looking at now. I mean, how many competitions are existing and how many people are saying, oh, these competitions are just existing to make money? And that's when we asked our question, as you're saying, what is the question of art, politics, and culture and respect in dance as an art?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah, the competitions are, again, like I could go on a very long tangent about what I think about the competitions too. But I think that I think there's been a lot of barriers broken recently as well. I think Misty Copeland is the first person that springs to mind, obviously. And I think also I have to say, in a small defense of the professional ballet world, there's a lot I can say critically, but I think that within it, there is a lot more openness nowadays. Different body types, different stories being told. More directors in classical ballet companies are interested in new stories and progressing the art form, are interested in taking into account the politics of it. I mean, there's been in my mind, there's been way too much over politicization. I've been in isolation for too long, I can't talk.
Welcome.
But really, I think at the end of the day, what we have to remember as well is that art it's a communication, it's a bridging, like it's a way to understand our human nature better. It's a way to communicate these ideas. So we can be very assertive with that language, or we can be very like, okay, this is what it is, and this is beauty, and here it is, and escape for a moment. It can be so many different things, and there's no one way to say, oh no, that's not ballet and that's not ballet. But I think what for all of the shortcomings of the traditional ballet world, there's many wonderful things happening now, and I think one of the best things about that is returning to what is dance, what is it about, and how do we develop it, and secondly is like breaking down those barriers of different cultures. And I think that that's a really great thing, especially the body image thing. Like one of the first things, and maybe your students are interested in this actually, one of the first things I used to always get asked in interviews was about my diet and about body image. And gratefully, those questions are becoming less and less asked. And I think this is a good, strong indicator of how we've progressed, actually. Nowadays, the idea of dances is more as an athletic pursuit, and it certainly is. Like, I mean, I did a comparison test with a footballer, and we were both equally fit, like, for our professions. And I was saying, wow, your regime's amazing, but he was like saying, you guys are crazy. Like, they prepare for one season in a year, like that one set of games, and we're working the year round and preparing 10 different shows. So our career longevity is therefore shorter because we're working that much more physically. So that's just an example of how the perception of dancers as these waif stick figures smoking cigarettes and eating Mars bars is becoming a thing of the past. And because we're thought of as more athletic, as more human, as more like people with voices, I think that that's really lending itself to how ballet is developing. And there's more and more dancers as well doing some really great things with communities in their home countries. Stella Abrera at ABT, she's doing great stuff in the Philippines where she's from. And there's some really great programs that you can, like, people are bringing ballet back home, basically. It's really nice to see.
Awesome. Yeah. Oh, and I'm going to ask you for her Instagram tag because I would love to look into her program. It's so interesting, and I've had so many comments from people like asking, I mean, this is not only inspirational, but it's helping people who have similar programs be able to develop it more. And creating a network is really also bridging the gap between ballet as being something elitist and ballet as being a form of expression accessible to everybody. So I want to thank you again for being part of that, and not just having the idea, but taking those steps forward to make a difference and to put it into motion. And also to Mariska and your whole team, because without them, this wouldn't be able to continue back in Indonesia.
Oh, absolutely. The work they do is tireless. And I have to add that they all they do it, you know, it's a non-for-profit organization. So they do it out of the sheer love of ballet and the belief in it as a force. So yeah. I think that's why I really enjoy working with them. They're just as passionate, probably more passionate than me, maybe. And I wish that I had more. Like, I'm still working as a professional dancer, so it means that my time is divided. I can't get back to Indonesia as much as I would like because of my program, because of many things. So I really hope that, and that's something I'm really working on at the moment, that in the future I can get over to Indonesia more once all of this current crisis is abated, hopefully, and get my, you know, dig my nails in and get things going over there, because I've got lots of ideas, and the Ballet.ID guys they're just absolutely tireless. So they've got ideas, you know, rolling through all the time as well. So the work they do is great. And the work I've just learnt about your work, but the work you do over there is wonderful too. So it's just really, it's really important. Like, it's really, really important. And even though I know it's really difficult when, you know, you feel like there's so many forces working against you. I mean, in Indonesia, there's funding problems. There's like the, you know, government problem. There's all sorts of things going on. So it's always like against all odds is, you know, really the motto. But it's possible. It's really possible.
Well, I have one other question from one of my little students, the same student as before. She was very excited to attend the talk today with you. So I'll ask her question and then take a 5-minute final commentary with you, and then we'll bring Mariska back on, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so my little student, so Jimena te pregunta, she asks, what's the process to get to pointe shoes as a professional ballet dancer? So I'm not sure how you want to answer that question, but that's her question.
Well, I started ballet like most kids do when they're 5 years old, and most kids would, most female kids, I should say, most girls would move to pointe shoes by age 12. And I was always very fine-boned and always the smallest in the class. So sadly, I wasn't strong enough when I was 12 to go into pointe shoes. And I'm just really, I have to say, I'm really, really happy that my teacher was so strict about not letting me go on pointe earlier than I should have. I mean, it was heartbreaking. Of course, like, the only thing a little ballet student wants to do is put on the pointe shoes as soon as possible, put on the shiny new pointe shoes and go up on their toes. And it's such a romantic and magical thing to get to do. And yeah, but I was held back for a year from doing it. I was told I wouldn't be allowed to until I was strong enough. And I had to go and do Pilates lessons instead to build up my strength. And I was like, no. But I do my once a week Pilates with a trainer who actually I still train with. And Pilates has become my absolute backbone of my training now. And I'm still, like, how many hundreds of years later, still doing Pilates every day. And I absolutely swear by it as strengthening complementary training to classical ballet, contemporary dance, just life in general. So can't stress that enough, because by the time I was strong enough, I had already laid such great foundations of strength that once I did finally get my pointe shoes on when I was almost 13, I was in fact stronger than the rest of my class. So I think there's a lesson in there for actually, you know, waiting, delayed gratification, because then I just like zoomed ahead of my colleagues. But we had to I just remember we had to do lots of lower leg training and lots of extra tondus and lots of extra rises and jumps and things to prepare our legs to be strong enough to do it. And then everyone else was strong enough, but I was still behind. I did the Pilates, but then we did weekly point classes, and we just stand at the bar and do really slow exercises, and then eventually we're all strong enough to go in the center, and it was very gradual. And I don't think everywhere the training is so meticulous. Again, I'm very grateful for a very responsible teacher, Mrs. Val Jenkins in Sydney, if anyone's wondering. She still teaches today. But I think it's a really important lesson for all students is listen to your teacher and listen to the advice. Listen, because they know when you're strong enough, and you just have to trust them that they've got your best interests at heart. So don't rush, take your time, be patient, because your point shoes will still be there. And then look where it got me, the patience. So it was very frustrating. I was so heartbroken. I remember it so well, being told, no, you're not strong enough. I was like, no, I can't.
Oh, okay, I will translate that in a snippet. Okay, Jimena, aquí está tu respuesta. Bueno, Juliet dice que ella empezó ballet cuando tenía solo 5 años y eso es, bueno, la edad normal. Y cuando tienen 12 años es la edad normal para personas para recibir sus zapatillas de Pointe para la primera vez. Y cuando ella cumplió 12 años, era la única de sus amigas que no podía lograr sus zapatillas de ballet porque su maestra dijo que ella todavía tenía que esperar porque como sus huesos no eran tan fuertes, sus huesos eran un poco más delicados, ella tenía que tomar un año extra para entrenarse. Entonces ella empezó a hacer Pilates, que es parecido a lo que hacemos de acondicionamiento y estiramiento y lo que hacemos también en la clase de jazz en el principio. Y con eso se puso muy fuerte y hizo sus ejercicios extras para fortalecer sus tobillos y sus pies. Y con eso ella empezó a ponerse suficiente fuerte y cuando tenía 13 años es cuando ella logró sus zapatillas de Pointe. Pero dijo que dolió su corazón demasiado porque vio a todas sus amigas con sus zapatillas de Pointe y ella estaba ahí sin sus zapatillas de Pointe y dijo que dolió tanto y hasta ahora recuerda ese momento de tanto dolor porque ella era la única que no podía lograrlo. Pero dice que en el momento de sí lograr sus zapatillas de Pointe, sus pies y sus tobillos eran mucho más fuertes, hasta más fuertes de sus amigas y ayudó a ella a avanzar así. Y dice que hasta hoy día sigue con su estiramiento y fortalecimiento de Pilates que ayuda a ella mucho. Y también dijo que es muy importante escuchar a tu maestra, Miss Christine, en tu casa, ¿sí? Escuchar bien a tu maestra, porque si ella no, si siguió sin escuchar a su maestra, ella sabe que no saldría igual. Y también dice que donde terminó, por escuchar bien a su maestra y estar en un estudio que dijo ella, espera, toma tu tiempo, todavía no estás lista. Dice que ahora ella es balletista profesional. There we go. Okay, well, I think my other, I don't think there's any other questions that I saw, but do you have any final commentaries about the community initiative and the barriers to dance socioeconomically for people in Indonesia, especially looking at the comparison from Indonesia and Australia?
Yeah, I think the main thing I'd say is there's still a lot of work to do. That, of course, I think also what's not to be underestimated is just doing little bits of work here and there and just really building something from the ground up or from the middle up, wherever it needs to be, but just to be patient about building on good work and just being really honest and authentic and passionate about what you're doing. And I think that just carries over into life, of course, but I think that's really important. It sounds a bit like I'm talking from a self-help point of view, but I think it's really important to remember because it can be really difficult to maintain motivation when you feel like those odds are against you. I mean, when there's no funding, when you have no time and you're exhausted, and you're constantly, your conscience is thinking of these people who need your help, and you feel guilty and all sorts of things. I'm saying this from experience, because it does break my heart that I don't have enough time in my schedule to be able to give myself completely to doing this work in Indonesia. But I have to say that time will come, and I will be in Indonesia more. I saw Ipenki's comment there, that I will be in Indonesia more, hopefully in the near future. I really need to organize my schedule so that I can do that, and make sure that I'm not so tired at the end of my season and just want to lie on a beach somewhere. So this
Although Indonesia does have beaches.
I know it does. Just whenever I'm there, it's never relaxing. I'm working, I'm seeing family. It's like, it's never a relaxing time. I love it. I love the crazy hysteria there. I love it so much, but it's never a relaxing time for me. But I do want to spend a lot more time there in future. So that is on the cards. Love you all, Ballet.ID, and I'm looking forward to working with or alongside you guys very soon. And there's, in the meantime, just keep dancing through this current weirdness, and like, it's a really good time to think of innovative ways to, that's the dog telling me it's time to go for a walk. Innovative ways to connect online. I mean, that's the privilege of what we have nowadays, is that we have the internet. I mean, that we're talking to each other in real time right now. This is really magic and really cool that we can do that, and that we can connect on something very common. And as both half Indonesian women living not in Indonesia and connecting with ballet, it's a really beautiful thing. So I hope that this series of talks that you're doing will inspire people to take up their mantle wherever they can in the world, and just make little steps, you know, like there's a great Australian song that says, from little things, big things grow. So I think that that's really important mantra.
Awesome. So one more, I'm sorry, my students are very excited. So how long did it take you to get your split? You can just answer that in one sentence. ¿Cuánto tiempo tomó para lograr el split?
I just saw my sister laughing because it's her dog that I'm looking after in the comments. Calm down, Louie. So my split, I seem to remember speaking of my sister Jasmine there, and we were sort of doing the splits in our backyard from a very young age.
Oh yeah.
We've got like old photos of us doing the splits, like up the doorway, like putting our leg up the doorway and just splitting into the doorway. So it's something that that came very flexibility in my family is kind of like very natural. Over in Indonesia, my family, like I said, they're artists. There's a dancer. My grandmother was a Javanese classical dancer. So we've got dancing bodies in the blood. And also on my dad's side of the family from Australia as well, that there's some, you know, artistic blood in there, and some, you know, at least a passion for dance. But I just remember my grandmother over here, like lifting her leg up when she was like, you know, in the hospital bed. I thought, wow, that's crazy, but also like, okay, this is where the genetics are. So of course genetics plays a role, and everything, but I think if I were to give like advice about creating flexibility, I would again go back to Pilates, because it's a way to build the flexibility. But then you can't have flexibility. Well, you can have flexibility without strength, but it's going to be useless. You know, you can pose for an Instagram photo and that's about it. Like, if you want to have functional flexibility, you need to do some work, like strengthening work, and Pilates, but also a really good classical ballet class will help you out there. So I would just say to her to do strengthening first and then the stretching. And so you only stretch when your muscles are already warm, otherwise you can really hurt yourself. And that's like really, really important to remember that.
Okay, super. I will translate that. Do you have to go right now for your dog?
No. I've got him sitting here now. He's very sorry that he barked through.
Okay, let me translate that really quick.
Yes.
There's a few more questions, but I will just reiterate on what we have said in the past. So ella dice que cuando era desde jovencita practicó su estiramiento en atrás de la casa con su hermanita y también estaban estirándose, como levantando su pierna donde estaba el marco de la puerta, pero también como su abuela era bailarina profesional también, dice que bailar y tener cuerpo con flexibilidad está en su sangre, es parte de su cuerpo. Um, Así, y dice que es muy importante hacer Pilates. Y esos ejercicios, si lo hacemos, y ella dice que es importante recordar fortalecer los músculos antes de estirarlos, porque si no puede ser muy peligroso. Y ella dice que también una clase buena de ballet clásica ayuda, porque una clase de ballet clásica va por los movimientos en una manera específica para lograr hasta flexibilidad. Y dice que, bueno, terminó diciendo que la importancia de hacer pilates que ayuda a fortalecer y desde ahí estirar el cuerpo es lo que va a ayudar mucho más. Así, básicamente ella está diciendo que tienen que poner su tiempo afuera de la clase de ballet porque la clase de ballet es bueno, pero el tiempo y los ejercicios que hacen afuera de esa clase es lo que va a ayudar a lograr ese meta más rápido. Okay, and one last question, which is kind of going to be a topic for a future talk, is as a professional dancer, what do you see a responsibility to share dance outside of the professional dance community and those who come and watch you perform?
Absolutely. I think that, I mean, that question goes into what we were talking about a bit more about accessibility, which I think is so important. I mean, that's something else that I was thinking of a lot at the time. I was talking about earlier about trying to reconnect with my Indonesian culture. Was, you know, why on earth am I doing this? And what is the point of just dancing in this theatre for what, you know, 1,000 people here, 2,000 there, and they can afford the expensive seats. But, you know, what about all the other people in the world who I could potentially communicate with? I mean, and how do I do that? So that's something that has been on my mind for very many years, as to going into the greater question of why am I dancing professionally? And I think that that's, like, for me, the logical next step in many ways in my career in the dance world, or if you want to put it more romantically, in my dance journey, that to think about ways that I can bring my knowledge and experience working as a professional dancer to reach out to more voices, and to reach out to more, you know, not just voices, but the ears to listen and to the eyes to watch and everything. So I think that it's really the next part of my brain that I need to put the thinking cap on there and keep it massaging it and keep it active. But it's something that I'm thinking about a lot, because, like I said, there's programs that I've seen of creating more accessibility to dance, but I think, like, thinking of new innovative ways to do it now, with where there's, like, limited access to funding. There's so much more funding being pulled from the arts in Australia. I mean, it's crazy.
Sorry. I didn't realize we're about to get to the end of the call and it's going to cut in 15 seconds. So
okay.
But I can start a new call, actually. Hello, everybody. Part 3. So we are just going to be waiting. Hola, Jimena. Hey, Mariska. This is the longest, this is the funniest Instagram craziness ever. Hey, Jose, welcome. Okay, there we go. Coming back on and
Okay.
Hi.
I'll try and wrap it up a bit in the answer, but yes, basically accessibility is becoming a really big part of my next plan for what I do next with dance. But especially in Indonesia, like I said, I have a lot more to learn, and that's where Ballet.ID is going to be really helpful for me. And we can keep thinking of ways to reach out, because the theatre is becoming also not just for underprivileged people, by the way, the accessibility for everybody, because the theatre is becoming more and more expensive. I mean, when I left the Australian Ballet, I think like the cheapest seats were like 80 Australian dollars or something. So it's becoming more and more expensive. I know that there's something that company has been working on, and I hope they'll continue working on. But the reality is that it's becoming more expensive to go to the theatre, and therefore it's perpetuating that elitist tag as well. So it's something that I hope ballet companies, dance companies around the world will work on, because it's really important that dance doesn't just become for a certain demographic. It should be for everybody. Yeah.
Awesome. So let me translate that really quick because I think it's really cool for my students here as well. Juliet estaba diciendo que, bueno, la dificultad de acceder a ballet no es solamente difícil para personas de bajos recursos, pero también hasta cualquier persona, cualquier ciudadano normal. Es difícil porque el precio de llegar y pagar un boleto para entrar al teatro y ver un ballet está subiendo y creciendo. Entonces ella dice que el acceso a ballet es algo que todos tienen que trabajar en eso, no solamente para comunidades, pero también para la gente en general, para poder llegar y apreciar y ver el arte y participar en el arte. Y bueno, ya no tenemos más tiempo para preguntas. Lo siento, alumnitos, si tenían más preguntas. I told them there's no more questions. They're having there's more questions, but there's no time for more questions. I would like to thank you, but they were so excited. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope to have you join in another talk in the future to talk about development and access to dance, because it's not really being spoken about, and just sharing the story and especially connecting to your identity, whatever that is, or your ethnicity, is a way to really help others figure out how to express themselves in the form of dance, and also dance as therapy for so many people who are in situations that are very difficult. So access to dance helps in so many ways.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I've a friend who's recently studied art therapy, and that really got me thinking about dance as therapy as well. No, I think it's English National Ballet. We're doing ballet for Parkinson's as well. It's really, I think there's just so many wonderful ways that ballet and dance can be super important for people's mental well-being as well, and physical well-being. So yeah, really, really important, and important to think about again, like how we can keep that need fulfilled at this weird time in the world.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for your time, and God bless, and thank you so much for the work that you're doing and for inspiring people across the world. It's so important to take a position that you have and use it to share with others, right? Because we all were given our own God-given unique talents. Not everyone can dance, not everyone can write, not everyone can be a doctor. So whatever that is, thank you so much for using your words for others.
That's right. Yeah, okay. Thank you to you too.
Of course. Well, maybe I'll see you in Indonesia when I go visit my family.
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
we'll cross paths one day. Hopefully.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Okay, well, have a great morning, I think. Have a great morning over there.
Just the afternoon now. Definitely time to walk at the dog. He's sulking at me.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll talk to you later. Bye. Thank you so much. Okay, waiting. Technology has been very difficult today, everybody. I think this is maybe the fourth or fifth glitch that has happened, but at least we were having a very beautiful and engaged conversation. I'm so glad that we were able to not only have Mariska here from Ballet.ID, but have Juliet here to talk about the initiative, and not only that, but the responsibility as a professional dancer, and what the ballet culture really looks like, because it's very different if you're at the level of a dance studio or if you're at the level of a professional dancer. They're very different, although they're in the same world. Hi! Okay, well, I think that we've had such an amazing talk, and I really hope that we can have more talks in the future. Do you have any final comments to share about Ballet.ID, about your organization or the community initiative that you'd like to tell everybody before we finish our talk?
Just really thank you for organizing this. Like it's really beautiful. And thank you, Juliet, for joining us. And yeah, I really hope that yeah, I mean like I always love like how this program or what we're doing like connected us in some ways. It's like I met a lot of beautiful people through this program, through Ballet.ID's program, and yeah, I really hope that it will continue. And then from the small things, and it can become bigger and bigger. I mean, like, thank you. Like, I hope like the situation will end soon, so we can do more. But meanwhile, I keep safe, keep healthy, and yeah, just try to do the best that you can do during this situation to keep you safe and healthy. I think that's all
Thank
from me.
you. Thank you so much. And also, I want to thank you so much for the work you're doing, for starting Ballet.ID, for giving access to dance to kids who don't have the opportunity, and for doing it for free as a volunteer. It speaks so much to your passion for others and your passion for ballet. And the world needs more people doing that, you know, using their talents to help others and to lift others up and to just show everybody that we're the same, that we're all equal, and that we should have the same opportunity to express ourselves through dance. Because as you know, as a ballet teacher and a ballet dancer, dancing is amazing, and it makes you feel free and strong and incredible and passionate. And I'm really thankful. And also thank you for organizing to have Juliet on the call with us. And thank you for continuing Ballet.ID, and just for also connecting, especially because we can show our shirts again. Yay!
Yay! Yay!
Yeah.
Yay!
Every
That's a shirt.
we were connected through the American Ballet Theater's Be the Bridge Project Plie program, and so that is how we found each other.
Oh, you know, like I just want to share this. I don't know if you can see this. Can you see that? Like the sign?
Wow, signed!
It's yeah. I brought this T-shirt to Singapore, and I met Daniel's American Ballet Theater, and I think I am lucky enough to get his signage on my shirt.
Cool.
Yay! Okay,
Mine doesn't have a
sharing
signature on
that.
it. Okay, well, I will let you go because it's actually late here. But God bless and thank you so much for your work. And
Thank
I hope to have more talks with you in the future to share with the whole world.
thank you. Thank you so much. Take care.
Good
Have a
night.
good
Bye.
rest. Bye.
Feliz noche. Adios.